Eruvin Daf test. Today's email comes to us from a young man who used to be very religious and a yeshiva bacher, but went off the derech and eventually became a fitness model. And after a while, one day he decided to daven in a shul in Williamsburg for the very first time in a long time. And a Hasidic Yid over there told him that Hashem always wants to have a connection with him, and decided to do tshuva, and that he needs some structure in his life. And he chose to learn Daf Yomi every day. He chose our shir, and he's been with us for 4 months. He goes on to say that he has over 500,000 followers on his Facebook account, Alpha Aesthetics, and he wants to help out to spread Torah in Klal Yisrael. Way to go, Alei v'hatzlach, all the luck in the world, all that tzlacha. Says the Gemara, a human king is not like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, obviously. If a person gets a death penalty in this world, as he's going up to the gallows, he curses out the king. They have to put a piece of wood in his mouth. He claims he doesn't deserve it, but when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives somebody the death penalty, the person realizes he deserves it. He's not going to say anything. In fact, he's going to be matzik din. He's going to say, I deserve it. Everything you do is the right thing. The Gemara goes through a pasuk, every word. Oivri be'emek habacha. Oivri means people that don't do rotten Hashem. Emek. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts them deep into Gehenna. Habacha. They cry and they shed tears. They go all the way into Shisim, which is on the Mizbeach. Says the Gemara, even Paishi Yisrael, Rishayim, say that the din is correct, and they say, Rebbeinu Shleilam, you give us the right din, you're right for giving Gehenna for the Rishayim and Gan Eden for Tzadikim. But Goyim, even at the entrance of Gehenna, don't do tshuva. According to Rav Kahana, everybody regrets it, just some people regret it too late. Rish Lakish says that Gehenna doesn't rule Paishi Yisrael, those who do Averis. In other words, they might go in for a moment, but they won't be there for very long. Why? Because they are full of mitzvahs. Even the sinners of Klal Yisrael are full of mitzvahs like a pomegranate, and he makes a kavachaymer. If Mizbeach Hazav, which was coated with a thin layer of gold, the gold remained there for all those years, wasn't consumed by the flames, certainly Klal Yisrael, even the Rishayim, but they have mitzvahs, those mitzvahs will protect them. They go into Gehenna for a moment, and Avram Avinu comes and pulls them out. There's one exception to the rule. A person who had a relationship with a Goya, Avram Avinu doesn't recognize him because his Arla is Nimshach. You can't tell that he's Jewish. The Gemara tells us there's 3 entrances to Gehenna. One in the desert, one in the ocean, one in Yerushalayim. The fact that there's 2 palm trees and the smoke coming up between the 2 palm trees, that's the entrance to Gehenna. That's possible that that is in Yerushalayim. That's one of the 3. The 7 names to Gehenna: Sha'oil, Avdon, Ber Shachas, Bar Sha'oin, Tita Yavan, Quicksand, Salmaves, Eres Tachtiyos. Gehenna is not one of the 7 names, because Gehenna stands for something. It's not actually a name. Gehenna, gay, means a valley. Those who do immorality, arayas, they go into Gehenna. The name Tafta, which is also refers to Gehenna, means that person who falls to the seduction of the Yetzer will fall into Gehenna. Rish Lakish says, if Gan Eden is in Eretz Yisrael, then I know where the entrance is. It's in Beis Shan. If it's in Arabia, then it's in Beis Garem, and if it's between the rivers, it's in Damascus. Abayi says, I know where it is because they're very good fruits on the right side of the Euphrates, so that's where Gan Eden is. Rava says it's in Harpanya. Going back to Eruvin, the Mishnah says that if you have pasibirois, you have these L-shaped brackets, the distance between bracket and bracket, according to Rameir, is the size of 3 cows times 2. There are 2 groups of 3 cows, and they have to be tied together and not untied, says the Gemara. That means to say that they literally have to be tied, but one group is going in while the other group is going out. So it's soichakais. It's not a tight amma like a otze, but it's rather slightly open amas. How much is a cow? How wide is a cow? How long is a cow? We say a cow has to be roish of ruba inside the pasibirais. That's the distance between the L-shaped brackets and the bar. A para is 2 amas, and 1 amma and 2/3 wide. In other words, according to Rameir, that the 6 cows, the distance between bracket to bracket is up to 10 amas. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that there are 8 cows, 8 times 1 and 2/3 is 13 1/3 amas. So if you have a bar that is 8 amas wide, a cow must be Rosh Haruba inside there, 2 amas. So you have to add 2 amas to each side for a total of 12 amas. If you take off the dyumdim, the 2 brackets on the side, you take off 2 amas. So now you're left with 10 amas. According to everybody, you don't have to add anything. That's perfect. The question, says the Gemara, or one other case, what if the bar is 12 amas? Now you have to add another 4 amas, 2 for each side. So now you are at 16 amas. You certainly have to add one strip of something in the center to break it up, because now your gap is more than 10 amas according to Rameir, more than 13.3 according to Rabbi Yehuda. The whole machlokes is, if the gap is between 10 amas and 13.3 amas, do you have to put another piece of wood in there or something? According to Rameir, you do. Abaya asked his stepfather, his Rebbe, Rabba, 6 questions that have to do with Pasi Birois. He says, what if a person, instead of putting a correction, one more piece of wood in the center, he added it to the Dyumdin, instead of the Dyumad being 1 amma wide, now it's, let's say, 2 amas wide, according to Rebbe Meir. The question is a pas, one strip in the center, is that more of a hecker, now it's more recognizable? Or the point is that the gap shouldn't be more than 10 amas, and over here the gap is not more than 10 amas. So there's 2 lashonis in the Gemara, either because the Mishnah says the word, you add bipasim, you can add it into the pas, you can add it to the pas and make the yumad, instead of it being 1 amma, you can make it 2 amas, so it's not a problem. Or you just take off the bays of bipasim, and it's no good, you cannot add, you have to put it in the center. Second question he asked, according to Rabbi Yehuda, where a person has a gap of more than 13.3, what happens if he adds that little strip, instead of putting it in the center, he adds it to the Dyumad? Is it better to add it to the Dyumad? Or perhaps, if you put in the center, the ear from both sides will cancel it out? Or no, maybe to put a simple heker in the center is better off. And he says, look, Rabbi Yehuda, when he defined the mechitza around the pit, he called it pasen. But according to you, that you could add it to a dyumdin, it's very possible that the dyumdim is very large and it's a true mechitza. Why does he call it pasen? So the Gemara says that's not a good raya, because the fact is that we have a gap of 13.3, so it's not halachically a good mechitza. The most you could really have is 10 amas, and over here is 13.3, so that's why he called it pasen. Third question Abai asked, what about Telam Islakid? You have a mound of dirt that's 10 tfachim high, but it reached 10 tfachim. The rise to run was over a 4 amma incline. Do we look at it and we say, I could imagine a dyumad within that mound of dirt? Says the Gemara, I'll answer you based on a machlokes. One man Dharma says that if you have a perfect square, you say choykakim. You carve out an imaginary carve to have a square, to have an L-shaped bracket. There's a machlokes whether you could say choykakim on a circle. What's a machlokes? Because to carve out a circle, you have to carve out 2 areas, like you see in the picture, the red and the blue. That's 2 rayons. Do we say 2 rayons? So depending on that mound of Amar, that's the answer in our question on a mound of dirt. Also, do you say 2 rayons or not? The fourth and final question is, do we say we have reeds, let's say 5 reeds, every less than 3 tvachim you make a reed, and you do lavud, you have lavud for a dyumad for pasim? And the Gemara says, don't bring a raya from the case that you have a tree and a fence and kanim, because it's possible that over there the kanim is referring to a giant bushel of these kanim. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.